There is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that the tension in the Formula One paddock has reached completely unprecedented levels in the entire history of global motorsport worldwide. Red Bull is desperately and frantically hoping that McLaren's devastating setback in Canada was not an isolated incident, while they prepare to defend their territory at this weekend's Austrian Grand Prix with absolutely fierce and unrelenting determination. But what has emerged in the recent hours from internal paddock sources could completely and fundamentally change the championship balance and unleash an unprecedented war between the top teams that promises to be absolutely explosive and devastating. McLaren scored only 12 disappointing points in Montreal, with Oscar Piastri as the sole driver to cross the finish line, after a devastating and shocking clash with Lando Norris that left everyone completely speechless and stunned. This would already be the first race without a podium this season for the Woking team, a disappointing result that made rivals celebrate enthusiastically and questioned their technical supremacy that seemed completely untouchable until just a few weeks ago when they dominated every single practice session with impressive authority. Max Verstappen finished in second place behind George Russell, reducing the gap to championship leader Piastri to just 43 points in a standings that is becoming increasingly tight, competitive, and unpredictable with each passing race. After the race conclusion, the Dutchman once again minimized his title chances with statements that seem almost provocative and calculated. But behind the scenes, Red Bull is plotting something completely different and much more dangerous for their direct competitors and rivals. McLaren's fierce rivals, mainly Red Bull led by Christian Horner, hoped desperately that the FIA's aggressive crackdown on front-wing flexibility at last month's Spanish Grand Prix would finally level the playing field at the top of the grid completely. They had conquered a convincing and dominant 1-2 finish in Barcelona, but their performances swung dramatically in the opposite direction in the last outing, leaving Christian Horner and his entire team in a position of extreme vulnerability that absolutely nobody expected or anticipated. Unfortunately for their most tenacious and aggressive opponents, the front wing was not the only reason for their crushing and overwhelming dominance throughout the season. McLaren is the absolute leader in tire cooling technology, and this could be their most devastating and sophisticated secret weapon, the one that is keeping all rival teams in the international paddock awake at night as they desperately try to copy their groundbreaking innovations. The FIA has recently significantly and dramatically modified the text of the F1 2026 regulations, and the initial suggestion from authoritative sources was that McLaren would be the most severely affected by these revolutionary and game-changing modifications. The use of specific devices to cool tires is now expressly prohibited by the new technical regulations, a strategic move that seemed directly aimed at the revolutionary technical innovations of the British team that have impressively dominated this season with unprecedented success. The exceptional and unusual temperatures of the MCL39 tires have been the subject of intense scrutiny in the paddock by all competing teams and technical personnel. Most notably and controversially, Red Bull strategically pointed a state-of-the-art thermal camera toward the McLaren car in the F1 pit lane, a bold and audacious gesture that fueled suspicions and tensions between teams, creating an atmosphere of mutual distrust and industrial espionage reminiscent of Formula One's darkest and most controversial times. Initially, it seemed that McLaren's undefined technical tricks would be completely prohibited by new regulations and restrictions. But according to a new explosive and detailed report published by the race, the rule change has absolutely nothing to do with the Constructors' Championship leaders. The truth is much more controversial, shocking, and disturbing than anyone in the paddock could possibly imagine, and it highlights Red Bull's desperate and increasingly aggressive tactics. If you're enjoying this exclusive content and our comprehensive in-depth analyses, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like to support our journalistic investigation work on Formula One. Every bit of your support helps us enormously to bring you increasingly more quality content and exclusive revelations from the racing world. Instead, it is a direct response to a completely uncontrolled and aggressive letter sent by Red Bull earlier this year to the competent authorities and regulatory bodies. Christian Horner's team contacted the body that regulates the sport with a series of radical and controversial technical proposals for tire cooling, including an absurd and almost science fiction proposal that would channel water directly from driver bottles to cool tires during crucial and decisive race phases. Red Bull wanted absolute clarity on what was considered legal according to current technical regulations and specifications, but their proposals were so extreme and innovative that they literally alarmed FIA leadership and management. Fearing that an expensive and confusing technological development race could dangerously emerge in this delicate area, the International Federation wanted to immediately clarify any regulatory ambiguity before the situation completely spiraled out of control and became unmanageable. Red Bull has consistently and relentlessly pressured the FIA throughout this entire year, desperately seeking every possible way to compensate for their obvious performance disadvantage and declining competitiveness. Their political tactics are becoming increasingly aggressive, controversial, and questionable, creating diplomatic tensions never seen before in the Formula One paddock that threaten the fundamental integrity of the sport. For example, Red Bull strategically warned race direction before the Canadian Grand Prix that Verstappen's rivals might deliberately try to penalize him through dirty and unsporting maneuvers. The Dutchman is dangerously just 1 point away from being suspended from the next race, an explosive situation that put everyone's nerves on edge and created an atmosphere of extreme tension and paranoia in the circus. After the conclusion of the Canadian race, the team immediately filed an official protest against winner George Russell and his Mercedes team. They publicly considered that he had demonstrated unsporting behavior behind the safety car in a calculated attempt to deliberately get Verstappen in trouble with race stewards and officials. The stewards maintained the race result after thorough analysis and investigation, and the Red Bull team was harshly criticized by everyone for their desperate and controversial tactics. Red Bull's rivals feel absolutely uncomfortable going as far as Horner to strategically help their lead driver and championship contender. This dramatic situation is creating deep and irreparable divisions in the paddock and seriously questioning the fundamental integrity of the sport we all love and cherish. Lando Norris has an extremely difficult and challenging battle ahead if he seriously wants to conquer his first coveted Formula One title in 2025. After the devastating accident at the Canadian Grand Prix, he is now significantly 22 points behind teammate Oscar Piastri in the Drivers' Championship, an embarrassing situation that nobody expected at the beginning of this promising season. The upcoming Austrian Grand Prix represents an absolutely crucial track where Norris desperately seeks personal and professional redemption after recent disappointments. Last year, a controversial collision with Max Verstappen prevented him from achieving a fundamental victory, while in the last race he tragically hit his teammate, demonstrating worrying psychological pressure and nervousness that could compromise his championship ambitions. With all these explosive and controversial considerations in mind, the battle for the 2025 championship has just begun and promises spectacular sparks and drama. The psychological war between Red Bull and McLaren will inevitably reach new levels of intensity in the upcoming crucial races. Thank you infinitely for following this comprehensive, in-depth analysis and exclusive revelations. Continue to follow us faithfully for all the most exclusive updates from the Formula One world. And absolutely do not miss the upcoming developments of this incredible saga that is completely redefining the circus balance.